Hello friends, teachers, hope you're doing well. Today we're looking at section 10. This is lesson 21. Some really cool and interesting things about the lost manuscript and God's foreknowledge and making everything work out well. Our bullseye, our objective here that I've underlined is we're trying to help students increase their confidence that God will help them overcome Satan's cunning plans in their lives. Now, I was talking to a teacher this week and I explained that a lot of times when I'm preparing a lesson, I can save some prep time by zooming out and just looking through the whole lesson really quickly to see how it's organized. Does it have a flow? Is it logical? Does it make sense? And if so, then when I'm teaching, it's going to be easier because I can see a clear direction. This one really does that. I want to illustrate it just really quick. So we're going to start with just establishing there's wise people, really smart people, really capable people, but God is smarter and more capable than all. So just that idea. Then we're going to establish that the devil is pretty cunning, pretty smart, pretty capable, not as much as God, but is working to mess with us. So we'll establish the idea of wisdom. We'll get the devil is working at that. Then we just transition into, well, God is wise, more wise than all. So even though Satan's pretty good, God is better. So I can trust and connect myself to God. And that's where we're going to end the lesson, is just establishing that we can trust God and apply and benefit from the wisdom of God by connecting in relationship with God throughout our lives. And we end with that. We've met the objective that we started with at the top of the lesson that I highlighted, and all is well. I want to share maybe just 3 ideas with this lesson that I think would help it to be a better experience for students. Right at the get-go, as we're establishing the idea of there's wise people out there, I've underlined that the idea of how we start lessons is to help students think. And we can adjust different things the way we start. And I often recommend adjustments that I think would be a blessing to my students that I teach and my personality. And so a lot of things we do at the very beginning of class, we want them to work, because if we start right, we're more likely to have students with us 45 minutes later. And so this invites students to think of the wisest person they know, or somebody that's good in these subjects. As I was thinking about that, I thought, I don't know that I could have good answers. Maybe my students could, but I don't know if I would. And so I thought, maybe I can establish the same idea and get students to think by talking about just some of the coolest inventions that are around, that have ever been. In fact, I Googled the best inventions, and this is what I came up with, and it just had 10. So I might even show some picture like this that I Google and say, here's 10. Which of those do you think is the most important invention for you? Or which could you do without? And just the idea is to get students thinking and talking. And then maybe even talking about how smart the person was. We're going to establish this idea of wisdom. And so I do like this idea of drawing a vertical line on the board. So just on the chalkboard or whiteboard, line down the middle, 10 at the top is like God-like smart, as wise as God, and 1 is dumb as a rock, or whatever it is. And so we could say, okay, Albert Einstein, where does he fit on this? Is he 1? Is he 10? Is he 6? What about the person, the Wright brothers with the airplane? Where would they belong? Or we might even say, what are some other cool inventions that have happened? What's something that's been invented that you're just grateful for? And maybe it's a toaster, or a microwave oven, or it could be anything. And this is just fun to get students talking. Whoever invented that, how smart are they on this scale, 1 to 10? And so we could just put X's on the board of where people are. We're getting to the idea, though, that God is there, and as smart as people are, we want to look to God at all times as much as we can, because that's our best resource for wisdom. And so I like these verses, Mosiah 4:9. I think this is a good time to say, let's just go to verse Mosiah 4:9. Would you mark a phrase in 4:9 that you think applies to our little line here and what we know about people and God? And so you can see students just asking, what did you mark? And they could mark, believe that man doth not comprehend all the things which the Lord, or anything. Why did you mark that? Why is that important to know? And then have them go to Isaiah 55, 8 and 9, sorry. And what's a phrase from those verses that applies to what we've got on the board? We're just establishing, and you're inviting students to look in their scriptures, to read on their own, to find something, to mark something, and they're going to share. And so we've got students thinking, we're connected to God, we're in the scriptures already. I think this is a good start for this lesson. Remember that the next thing we're going to get to is we're going to highlight this principle. And so what do we need to know, though, the bottom line about God? And let's mark it in verse 43. And again, you're having them read on their own in their scriptures, they're marking, and hopefully every student then can have the experience that God's wisdom is greater than the cunning of the devil. So this is the foundation for the lesson. If we've established this pretty well, then we're doing pretty good, and I think we could get somewhere. Now, we've still got on the board this little trajectory from 1 to 10, and we could say, we're mentioning the devil here. So on this scale, we've got all these smart people, these great inventions. Where do you think the devil would fit on this? And that would be an interesting discussion. Again, I think we're getting students' interest back. They've done some things, but I think this is interesting. Is the devil a 6? Is the devil an 8? How close is the devil to God in wisdom? And so we then have somewhere to go. We're going to look in the scriptures at this story with the lost manuscript, and we're going to see what the devil was trying to do to show how smart the devil was. And we've got these verses to look at, but we've got this visual on the board to keep comparing to and saying, oh, after reading these verses, is that pretty smart? Do you think the devil still goes at a 6? Would you put the devil at an 8? Would you put the devil down at a 4? Is this a dumb idea? But we're just going to be reminded that compared to God, people, the devil, are significantly lower. Then we transition to, let's just highlight then how smart God is, the wisdom of God. There's this great little activity here. A pro tip is you can cut these out in advance, or you can, if you've got a student that comes 5 minutes early, you can just bring those with a pair of scissors and have that student or those students just before class, hey, would you cut these out for us before we begin today? If that works, that's great. If you could do it on different colors of paper, that's great. Or you could even put a number like 1 on these so that you want to put these together so that we have the right amount of students, 4 students per puzzle piece. Just one tip with this, and I'll finish up for the day, is as students get together for this activity, and they're going to put this story together and kind of see how God orchestrated it being okay that these manuscript pages were lost. We want students to understand that. And so as they put the puzzle pieces together, they read their verses, and they kind of get a summary of what's going on. You want them to practice. And so before you get together as a class, say, okay, let's practice. Your team of 4, your group of 4, could you go in order and explain what God did, what the devil did, how God showed that his wisdom is greater than the cunning of the devil with these lost pages? See if you can do that together once. And then you want to make sure the whole class understands. And so you could say, is there a group of 4 that you think you got it down and you wouldn't mind doing this for the class? Come up to the front. And those 4 are going to be in front of the class, and they're going to essentially tell the story. Tell us what God did. What did God prepare? What did the devil do? How does this all work out in advance? And then we're just going to finish the lesson with what are we learning? How does this knowledge of what God is like impact me? What does this motivate you and I to want to do better? How does our relationship with God, how should this knowledge impact our relationship with God? Great things, interesting things. I think you'll do wonderfully and have a good time. Thanks for all that you do as a teacher.